Fong Yan, I should have reminded you that if there is nothing important, don't wake me up. A voice suddenly came out, and at some point, an old figure appeared in front of Fong Yan. He was wearing a blood-colored robe, bohemian, and his withered yellow hair looked unusually obvious. Then, he looked around and down, frowned suddenly, and then said coldly, "Who did this?" The anger can be clearly heard in the tone. "Ancestor, someone is really bullying me too much." When Fong Yan saw the old demon appearing, he immediately knelt down and recounted what had just happened with tears in his eyes. Xiao Yan was also so happy, just watching the interaction between the two. In his mind, the figures of the two people overlapped somewhat. After thinking for a moment, he couldn't help but laugh and thought to himself, "Isn't this what that old dog Yinlun looked like when he begged Yunshan? It's exactly the same." Soon, Fong Yan finished describing everything that had just happened. The old demon also looked at Xiao Yan high in the sky with an unkind look on his face, with a bit of cold, murderous intent in his eyes. He stood with his hands behind his back, his clothes were windless, and a fierce aura suddenly aroused from his body. For a moment, the color of the sky and the earth changed, and the clouds in the sky were shattered by the aura he suddenly aroused. I have been silent for many years. Unexpectedly, the young people in the Black Corner region feel that I have fallen. Don't they remember the fear back then? The sound was like rolling thunder. Under the spread of fighting spirit, it spread and enveloped a small half of the Demon Flame Valley. With the appearance of each word, the momentum of the old demon slowly rose again, appearing extremely terrifying, making the people below countless Demon Flame Valley disciples could not help but be extremely excited. If the ancestor is so tyrannical, the outsiders will definitely pay the price. Seeing the old devil pretending to be a master, Xiao Yan could not help but feel a hint of sneer in the depths of his eyes. Without any courtesy, he directly exposed the old devil's fig leaf and said loudly, Now, if you are really powerful, why don't you go to Zhongzhou to show off your power? To put it bluntly, you did very poorly among those strong men from the Black Corner region back then. You want to show off in front of me, you old devil, but your virtue is not enough." Seeing the old demon's face change, Xiao Yan snorted again, continued to sneer and added, "Old demon, you are just a mountain without tigers, and a monkey is the king. Who can you compare to those strong men of yours back then?" When these words came out, the old demon's face immediately changed, and he immediately became fierce. Xiao Yan's words directly hit his sore spot. Although today's old devil can crush any blacklist powerhouse in the Black Angle region, he was nothing among the generation back then, especially Meng Tianqi. The dean of Canaan College, who is of the same generation as him, has already entered the realm of Dou Zun. Not to mention an old devil. Even if 10 of them are tied together, they will be crushed by someone's slap. Damn, young man, stop talking nonsense and give me your life. The old demon became so angry that he immediately did not give Xiao Yan another chance to poke his sore spot. He suddenly took action, and his whole body turned into a bloody stream of light and rushed towards Xiao Yan with an astonishing momentum. Facing the attack of the old demon old ghost, Xiao Yan did not flinch at all, but stepped forward, immediately punched out in the direction in which the old demon old ghost was charging, and shouted coldly, "Break it for me." Suddenly, Xiao Yan's soul power suddenly aroused, and he punched out with majestic force, just in time to meet the palm of the old devil. Boom! The dull sound of fist-to-flesh clash suddenly exploded, and a circle of invisible air waves suddenly spread from the place where the two met, like ripples hitting the water. Below, a hilltop where the two men were fighting suddenly exploded out of thin air, and countless rubbles rolled down. For a moment, it was like a meteor shower. After a brief moment of stagnation, the two started fighting again, their fighting spirit aroused. For a moment, the dull sound of fighting continued to emanate from the center of their battle, which seemed extremely terrifying. Balong fist, get out of my way. A moment later, with a low shout resounding through the sky, Xiao Yan punched out again, hitting the block where the old devil's arms were crossed. The latter's expression changed, and he felt a majestic force. It inspired him, and he couldn't help but take dozens of steps back. "Boy, who are you?" The old demon's eyelids couldn't help but twitch. After the fight just now, he discovered that the young man in front of him seemed weak, but his strength was beyond his imagination. Faced with his attacks, he did not fall behind in the slightest. With the strength he has shown at such an age, this young man is really not simple. Even the old man Mang Tianqi couldn't do this at his age. Thinking of this, the old devil suddenly wanted to quit. Xiao Yan was so young and had such strength. In addition to his talent, I am afraid that the forces behind him are not simple. If he offends rashly, he may cause a big disaster. Although the losses were extremely serious, Old Demon obviously knew what choice he should make compared to enmity with Xiao Yan. "This little brother, has my Demon Flame Valley offended you in any way? After such a killing, our Demon Flame Valley has suffered heavy losses. You should feel relieved, right? It's not good for anyone if the fight continues. Why don't we shake hands and make peace? I promise that I won't hold you accountable." Faced with the possible forces behind Xiao Yan, the old demon gave up without any backbone. However, he wanted to back down, but Xiao Yan did not agree. "It's too late. You just made 3 moves, so now you can also take one from me." With a loud shout, Xiao Yan no longer concealed his true strength, and all the soul power he could use now was activated together. Suddenly the wind and clouds stirred, the earth cracked, and the sky had strange phenomena. Suddenly, the old demon's expression changed, and he couldn't help but said, "Dozun? No, it's not even close. How is that possible?" However, no one could explain his doubts. 2 strange fires of different colors suddenly appeared in Xiao Yan's hands, and then they intertwined together, and a beautiful fire lotus suddenly took shape. Buddha's angry fire lotus go. With a soft cry, Xiao Yan pushed his palm, and the fire lotus suddenly flew towards him in the horrified eyes of the old demon, and then suddenly exploded. Boom! A violent explosion suddenly sounded, and a fierce fire burned like a small sun high in the sky above the Demon Flame Valley. A mushroom cloud also rose at the right time. Use this trick to send you on your way and put an end to the regrets of your previous life. In the distant sky, the young man in black robes was vibrating his purple and black wings, and the muffled thunder sounds kept ringing in the sky. The gorgeous fire lotus shot out quickly in front of Xiao Yan's eyes, spanning countless distance, and smashed towards the old devil. At this moment, the latter's face completely turned purple, his eyes protruded, and immediately a trace of extreme panic appeared on his face. Escape! This person is invincible. Countless words like this appeared in his mind, and every cell in his body was shouting crazily, obviously feeling this destructive power. But it was too late. When the old demon had this idea, the gorgeous 2-color fire lotus had already appeared in front of him and then exploded. Looking at the nuclear explosion-like scene in front of him, Xiao Yan just clapped his hands gently without any discomfort. With his current strength, the 2-color fire lotus displayed now is several times more powerful than the 4-color destruction fire lotus he used when facing the old demon in his previous life, killing a 7-star dozong. The old devil has made more than one mistake. In the previous life, you managed to escape with your life when I destroyed the fire lotus. This time, why don't you try taking on my fire lotus? Xiao Yan shouted in his heart, watching the explosion in front of him, and then the shock wave spread. All the mountains within 10 miles of the Demon Flame Valley were shattered, and the earth shook for a moment, as if a natural disaster was coming, causing countless demons to the disciples of Yengu are miserable. The explosion disappeared, and feeling the aura within it dissipate, Xiao Yan immediately waved his sleeves, and a strong wind swept in, quickly blowing away the thick smoke and smoke caused by the explosion among them. Only a fragment of an object that was as incomplete as black coal was left. It turned out to be the one left by the old devil, and now he is completely dead. Fang Yan, the great elder of Demon Flame Valley, who is not far from Old Demon Old Ghost, had been completely evaporated by that terrifying attack. with not even a trace of ashes left. At this point, all the powerful men above the Dou level in the Demon Flame Valley, all the high-level officials, have been killed by Xiao Yan, the original second-largest force in the Black Corner territory will completely exist in name only from now on. There was also a flash of complicated emotions in Xiao Yan's eyes, but he quickly dissipated this emotion and then stretched out his hand out of thin air and grabbed it in front of him, and the small remaining fragment of the old devil was the body fell into Xiao Yan's hands. It was an arm, and there was a blood-red crystal ring on it. After putting it away, Xiao Yan looked down and saw hundreds of disciples from Demon Flame Valley, densely gathered below, like lambs waiting for judgment, terrified. The old ghost of Mulch and Fong Yan have been executed. For the rest of the people in Demonic Flame Valley, I will give you half an hour to leave here. From now on, you must not mention the name of Demonic Flame Valley again. Xiao Yan shouted coldly, and his voice was like rolling thunder, falling from high in the sky. Under the influence of Dou Qi, it quickly spread and could be heard throughout the Demon Flame Valley. Looking at the people in the Demon Flame Valley below who became agitated because of his words, Xiao Yan did not care anymore. Instead, he stepped on his feet and disappeared from the place, as if he had walked into the void gate, leaving only a trace behind. The shadows slowly dissipated in mid-air. Even though Xiao Yan is extremely disgusted with the old demon, old ghost, and others, he is not a person who kills. A large group of villains headed by the old demon, old ghost have been killed, so those ordinary Demon Flame Valley disciples below, Xiao Yan don't bother to take action against them. After all, a group of people who were not even the king of fighters could not possibly pose the slightest threat to him. The current goal was to plunder the collection of Demonic Flame Valley. After all, as the largest force in the Black Corner territory, Demonic Flame Valley's collection is also extremely rich. Regardless of martial arts and fighting skills, or precious items and medicinal materials, the quantity is by no means small. Sending them to the Xiao family can greatly improve to enhance the family's underlying strength. I remember that in addition to the flame technique, there are also methods for refining the heavenly demon puppet, and they are all here. A flash of light flashed in Xiao Yan's eyes. If we talk about the auxiliary skills and props that were extremely important to him in his previous life, then the improved version of Nongyan Ju and Tianyao puppet are definitely ranked high, but those things are deeply ingrained in his mind. What he needs is some other resources. Soon, following his memory, Xiao Yan came to a dark mountain wall in the Demon Flame Valley. Following the hidden steps, Xiao Yan quickly walked and it was a familiar road, and at his current speed, it took him about a minute to walk before he came to the end and saw a thick stone door with airtight patterns on it, which was obviously supported by formation. Break. Ordinary Douhuang warriors might have trouble facing this stone door, but for Xiao Yan, it was nothing. His muscles bulged, his fighting spirit condensed on his arms, and his soul power was stimulated. The punch was punched hard, smashing the thick stone door directly into pieces. The moment the stone door was opened, a strong wind appeared. Xiao Yan had already expected this. A look of nostalgia flashed in his eyes, and he immediately turned his fist into a palm and then blasted away the two strong winds. Grabbed him hard, then pushed him down and pushed him to the ground. As expected, he is still a demon puppet. Xiao Yan murmured to himself, and then his fighting spirit aroused, and he began to forcibly refine these two demon puppets. They both have the strength of Dou Zong and can be regarded as good thugs. If they stay with the Xiao family, they can also be regarded as good bodyguards. Soon, Xiao Yan finished plundering the treasure house of Demonic Flame Valley and swept up everything in it. Then he punched out from a distance, causing the entire Demonic Flame Valley to collapse, and then left the place. The news of Demonic Flame Valley's destruction suddenly swept through the entire Black Corner territory like an uproar, like a bomb dropped in a quiet pool, shocking countless people. Demonic Flame Valley, which was the most powerful force in the Black Corner territory except Canaan College in its heyday, has now been destroyed. The shock brought by it is too heavy, and countless people are terrified. Not only that, many forces belonging to the Black Corner territory, I have kept a lot of low profile during this period. However, compared to them, Canaan College, which had been notified by Xiao Yan long ago, did not move at all. Instead, it took advantage of the news to once again increase the number of manpower arranged in the Black Angle domain and made a huge profit. Just when everyone was shocked by the news, the initiator of the destruction of the Black Corner territory fell into deep contemplation. A black shadow is suspended high in the sky, seemingly without any aura fluctuations, but once you look closely, you can see the explosive and destructive power contained in his body, which is extremely powerful. However, there is now a tangled look on this figure's face, and he is obviously troubled by this. About half an hour later, the figure finally made up his mind to wake up, then shook his head and murmured to himself, "That's all, let's go to the Izumo Empire first." As the faint words fell, deep in Xiao Yan's heart, for no reason, a beautiful figure suddenly flashed across his eyes, and a soft look appeared in his eyes. Soon, his whole body turned into a stream of light, flying towards the distance, and soon turned into a small black, completely disappearing into the horizon. The Izumo Empire is one of the 3 empires close to the Gamma Empire, and it is also the most powerful empire in the area, far exceeding the other 3 empires. Although the Izumo Empire is so powerful, it also has a lot of friction with the surrounding empires, especially the most serious friction with the Garma Empire. The 2 empires even had a tragic war at one time. Both sides won and lost, but in general it can be said that the Izumo Empire is better. The main reason for the conflict between the 2 sides is that the existence and custom of alchemists are more popular in the Gamma Empire, but it is different in the Izumo Empire. There is a very special profession called Poison Master. Poison Master possesses a kind of poisonous fighting spirit. This kind of fighting spirit is originally not common, but in the Izumo Empire, it is far more numerous than the fighting spirit of other attributes. Because of this, the Izumo Empire there is a special profession called Poison Master. Poison Dou Qi has countless branches, but they are roughly the same. They all contain highly toxic substances. Of course, the abnormal toxicity of poison is naturally not a normal attribute, but a man-made mutation product. I and the Izumo Empire. Cultivating a being with poisonous fighting spirit means that when they are underage and have not yet become a fighter, they must soak their bodies in poisonous water and slowly cultivate, and in this during normal practice, their bodies will be transformed and toxins will slowly enter the body and finally be completely integrated into the Dou Qi and turn into their own attributes. The toxicity of the poisonous water ranges from weak to strong. Because of this, the birth of every poisonous attribute fighting spirit owner will cause a lot of casualties, but it still makes countless people in the Izumo Empire pursue it. After all, it is equivalent to ordinary fighting spirit. In terms of lethality, the poison attribute fighting spirit is more powerful, but it has advantages and disadvantages. Because of this, the vast majority of cultivators in the Izumo Empire are people with surly temperaments. If they disagree, they will get angry and fight, causing bloodshed. Events are happening every moment, and they are not even more impressive than the Black Corner domain. For people who practice poison attribute fighting spirit, the Gamma Empire's worship of alchemists is naturally unacceptable. Most of the alchemists are disdainful of the Poison Master's practices. For them, refining medicine is in order to cure diseases and save people, improve cultivation, explore the principles of heaven and earth, and improve one's own cultivation. I have no regard for using various insidious poisoning methods to hurt people. It is precisely because of this that the 2 empires are constantly in friction and cannot get along harmoniously at all. However, it is also for this reason that once the 2 countries go to war, the entire Gamma Empire is united, while the Izumo Empire is experiencing constant civil strife and struggles from time to time. With the emergence of one and another, it is no wonder that the strength of the Izumo Empire is one head higher, but it is evenly matched with the Gamma Empire. Fortunately for these reasons, the Izumo Empire has many more powerful people than the Gamma Empire. While Xiao Yan was recalling all the details and what happened in his previous life, he couldn't help but complain. Even the older generation of strong men in the Gama Empire cannot find 10 strong fighting emperors. The competition between the two major sects of the Izumo Empire will have 2 major fighting sects and 10 strong fighting emperors fighting in life and death. The difference between the two is simply not in order of magnitude. In the previous life, the 3 major empires joined forces to attack the Gama Empire. It sounds nice, but in fact, the Izumo Empire did not use all its strength. Only one poison sect among the major sects in the empire took action, and it did not take away all the strong ones. While this was comparable to all the masters that the Jiama Empire could gather at that time, I don't know how Kailin could survive such a difficult situation for several months at that time. Xiao Yan murmured to himself, then shook his head, put these thoughts aside, and continued to think about the next thing. It has to be said that although the poison attribute fighting spirit is powerful, its disadvantages are also quite obvious, especially for the possessors of the poison fighting spirit that have been modified the day after tomorrow. The more they practice, although the power is powerful, the toxins in the poison fighting spirit will continue to corrode with their bodies. If they cannot practice Do Wang, they will have to endure unspeakable pain all the time. Thinking of this, in Xiao Yan's mind, a beautiful figure with gray hair, wearing a robe and a slender waist flashed past. Little medical fairy, I don't know what you went through in the past 3 years in your previous life to transform from that innocent and beautiful girl into a murderous poison master. The regrets that I couldn't make up for in my previous life, I will change them in this life, waiting for me. In this case, if we calculate the time, the current little medical fairy should have left the Gama Empire not long ago, and it has not been long since he arrived in the Izumo Empire. Xiao Yan murmured to himself, his thoughts turning rapidly, clarifying the timeline and context, and then quietly drew an arc in midair and flew in another direction. At the end of the destination, there was no other place. It was the Misty Valley, where Xiao Yan had spent a good time with the little fairy doctor. And the last life, the little medical immortal played an important role in his own cultivation path. From the first meeting during training to the subsequent meeting on the battlefield, all the way to Zhongzhou when major events such as the Warcraft Mountains, the Izumo Rebellion going to Zhongzhou, rescuing Yao Lao, the development of Xingyin Pavilion, and the establishment of the Tianfu Alliance happened, the little medical fairy accompanied Xiao Yan and played an extremely important role. When Xiao Yan was at his lowest point, the little medical fairy also encouraged and comforted him. Without her company, Xiao Yan may not have been able to reach the end of his journey, and he would have had many regrets. Clenching his fists tightly, Xiao Yan's eyes flashed with determination, and he shouted calmly, "Don't worry. Everyone's ending will be changed by me in this life. I will never let many regrets happen again in front of me." A strong wind blew through the vast forest sea, blowing the forest sea into waves, and the roaring sound spread like waves throughout the entire mountain range. Whoosh! Above the forest sea, the sound of breaking through the air suddenly sounded, and soon a dark figure appeared from the distant horizon, then expanded rapidly and finally stopped in the sky. Looking at the familiar but slightly unfamiliar terrain below, Xiao Yan's expression was slightly dazed. He had not been back here for several years, and the terrain had also undergone some changes. However, fortunately, Xiao Yan had the memories of 2 lifetimes, which overlapped and quickly helped him determine the location of the small valley. His gaze suddenly swept across the dense forest below, and after a moment, Xiao Yan determined the specific location of the Misty Valley. Continuing to fly, Xiao Yan looked down after a while and saw layers of dense fog appearing in the lush woods. A valley without any passages appeared in front of Xiao Yan under their cover. The figure slowly descended from the sky, took a deep breath, and felt the slightly cold air and the familiar fragrance. Xiao Yan couldn't help but close his eyes. Countless memory fragments flashed through my mind, whether they were from the previous life or this life. They were all vivid. After a long time, Xiao Yan slowly opened his eyes and followed the familiar road to the depths of the valley. Soon, he saw familiar but unfamiliar medicinal fields, cliffs, and small huts. As expected, there haven't been many changes, but this is something worth remembering. Xiao Yan murmured to himself and walked slowly. He did not use his fighting spirit to increase his speed. Instead, he just walked step by step like an ordinary person in the valley, taking in everything, that elegant but kind figure wearing a green silk scarf and white clothes seemed to appear in front of Xiao Yan. After a long time, he shook his head and shook away these thoughts. Mixed with inexplicable emotions, murmured to himself, "In my previous life, when I returned to the Misty Valley again, I seem to have come with Kai Lin Ziyan and the others. I almost got into a fight with her, who concealed her identity. Now, I am the only one." In the previous life, Xiao Yan was forced out of the Gama Empire by the Yunlan sect for 3 years before he came back. After settling the matter, he came here with Kai Lin and Ziyan. Not only that, it has been closed here for a whole year, and it was at that time that the two met for the first time after 3 years. Xiao Yan had grown from a little fighter to the leader of the Flame Alliance, and the kind and helpful little medical fairy had also become the leader of the Flame Alliance. The leader of the poison sect, who is frightened by people, plays tricks on people. After staying in the Misty Valley for a day and a night, Xiao Yan sat cross-legged on the cliff in the early morning of the second day. When the morning light came, he slowly stood up. After taking another deep look at the Misty Valley, he suddenly tapped his feet. The whole person turned into a stream of light, flying towards the distance with the sun on its back. Soon, it turned into a small black and disappeared into the sky. Although the Jiama Empire is vast, at Xiao Yan's current speed, it is not that far away. About 2 hours later, he arrived at the border of the Jiama Empire from the Misty Valley. Without any hesitation, Xiao Yan quietly, after flying over the border and seeing the war fortress belonging to the Izumo Empire from a distance, he ignored it and plunged into the territory of the Izumo Empire. The Dou Chi formation above the fortress, which was originally used to restrict the air, really had no effect on Xiao Yan's passing, and there was no sign of even being stimulated. This time, Xiao Yan's purpose was not only to bring back the little medical fairy from the Izumo Empire, he also had a more important thing to do. Thinking of this, Xiao Yan's face also showed a touch of coldness. In the previous life, after destroying the Yunlan sect, I established the Flame Alliance and entered seclusion. However, not long after that, the 3 major empires on the border of the Gemma Empire, under the instigation of the Iron Guardian of the Soul Palace, they joined forces to launch a siege against the Jiama Empire. Although they won the final victory, that battle also caused the Yan Alliance to suffer heavy losses. This time, although the Yan Alliance was established several years earlier than in the previous life, even Xiao Yan could not guarantee whether the timeline for the 3 empires to besiege the Jiama Empire would be advanced. After all, when the moment you are reborn with memories, many things will inevitably change. I hope that the Iron Protector is in the Izumo Empire. We will find him out this time and go meet that old guy Xie. After all, in the previous life, you old guy caused me a lot of trouble. Thinking of this, Xiao Yan's originally somewhat cold eyes also burst out with a hint of murderous intent unconsciously. In the previous life, Xiao Yan also fought against this old guy, but he was quite insidious and was about to be defeated. Before his death, he used a secret method to turn the poisonous fighting energy accumulated throughout his life into demonic poison spots and penetrated into Xiao Yan's body, causing him unspeakable suffering and putting his life in danger at all times. Fortunately, in the end, after refining the 3rd type of strange fire, the demonic poison spot was also completely refined, which actually improved Xiao Yan's cultivation and made Xie idea come to nothing. Burying many thoughts in his heart, Xiao Yan accelerated again, and his whole person turned into an invisible stream of light, flying wantonly in the Izumo Empire. With his now restored soul power, no one in the entire Izumo Empire could detect it. Xiao Yan's movements, and the Izumo Empire, poison masters are rampant. Although the overall cultivation level is much stronger than that of the Gama Empire, because it is too chaotic. The tyrannical forces in various places develop independently, and the actions of countless strong casual cultivators are also self-centered. As a result, No one can integrate all the poison masters in the Izumo Empire. On a vast plain, there is a huge city, like a giant beast crawling on the ground, staring eagerly. Its city walls are all black, and it looks extremely solemn and solemn. Every distance from the city wall, there are fully armed soldiers patrolling, and there were large groups of people lining up at the city gate, making it extremely lively. This is a very famous big city in the Izumo Empire, Black Creek City, and it is also the fifth big city that Xiao Yan passed through after entering the Izumo Empire. Looking for someone in a country without any basis is like finding a needle in a haystack, but Xiao Yan did not give up. He firmly believed that he would be able to find the little medical fairy. I hope you won't let me down this time. The black-robed figure murmured to himself, and then followed the crowd into Black Creek City. Hey, have you ever heard of that female poisonous cultivator who has been in a lot of trouble recently? Not long after Xiao Yan walked into Black Creek City, he turned a corner, and a voice quietly floated in his ears. The words, female poison cultivator, caught Xiao Yan's attention. He raised his eyebrows, turned his head, and looked in the direction where the sound came from, only to find that there were several guys wearing poison master robes there, walking together. They seemed to be traveling together, and the words about the female poisonous cultivator also came from the mouth of a slightly gloomy, middle-aged man. Haha, this matter was quite a fuss before. As long as there is some information channel, who wouldn't know about it from the nearby big cities? A younger-looking man chuckled and replied to the middle-aged man's words, while the other representative old man coughed lightly and said lightly, "But having said that, that little poisonous girl's talent and strength are not weak. As a great fighting master, when faced with a siege of 2 or 3 powerful fighting spirits, she was able to kill one person and escape. It's really amazing." The middle-aged man who spoke first saw that all the topics were taken away, and he immediately became anxious. He blushed and sneered. "Teach, so what if she has high talent? If she offends the demonic poison sect, no matter how many tricks she has, she can't protect herself." As they talked, Xiao Yan followed them all the way and listened to them all. He was also very happy in his heart. Based on the descriptions of several people and their opinions about appearance, Xiao Yan was 90% sure that these people said it's the little fairy Dr. Diane edition. He also figured out the general reason of the matter during the chat with several people. Generally speaking, it was that the little medical fairy had just arrived and did not understand the rules. Because of a fight over poison, he offended the devil. One of the disciples of the poison sect was so angry that he led his men to rob the little medical fairy. Instead, he was killed by the little medical fairy. However, this is incredible. This disciple of the demonic poison sect is actually the beloved descendant of an elder of the demonic poison sect. Although he is not strong, he is favored a lot. He was killed all of a sudden, but it caused a stir. There was an uproar, and because of this, she completely offended the demonic poison sect and was hunted down, and the demonic poison sect is not weak in strength. It is much more powerful than the Yunlan sect without Yunshan. Their sect leader is an 8-star Dou Huang-level powerhouse and an internal Dou King-level elder within the sect. There are no longer a few, but because the little medical fairy initially offended an elder Dou Wang, the people who come forward to deal with her now are just some elite disciples of the great Dou Master level and some Dou Ling level deacons. Fortunately, the King Fighter didn't come in person, otherwise with the little medical fairy's current ability, I'm afraid he would be really in danger. But even now, it's not much better. Xiao Yan's eyes were a little hazy. He didn't expect that the little medical fairy would be in such danger soon after arriving in the Izumo Empire. This was something he never knew about in his previous life, but now that it has happened in this life, he can't live without him. In the case of intervention, the same thing must have happened in the previous life. It's not easy for her either. Xiao Yan sighed in his heart, but now that the little medical fairy is in crisis, he will naturally not sit idly by and do nothing. Now that the information has been collected, it is time to set off. Since the matter was related to the demonic poison sect, there was no need to go to so much trouble. Xiao Yan just made some casual inquiries and used gold coins to clear the way and found out about the traces of a demonic poison sect disciple. Then, he confirmed the identity of the other party. He secretly took action and captured him. After many rounds of interrogations, Xiao Yan confirmed that the news about the little fairy doctor was not only true, but he also obtained a more important piece of information. Although the initial conflict between the little medical fairy and the demonic poison sect was just because the descendant of the Dou elder failed to rob and was killed instead, many people from the demonic poison sect later went after the little medical fairy because of the elder's order. After repeatedly escaping and even being killed several times, he has attracted the attention of the demonic poison sect. This time, the demonic poison sect did not intend to let the little medical fairy go, but wanted to capture him directly with the force of thunder. Because of this, they set up a dragnet based on the little medical fairy's movement patterns. Near the city where the little medical fairy last appeared, that is, in the dark harbor outside Black Mist City, news was released at regular auctions held at regular intervals. Among the auction items, a batch comparable to 3 the strange poison of the 4th grade elixir lured her to the bait. Not only that, the demonic poison sect also specially sent a Dou strongman and 10 Dou Ling deacons to suppress the formation. They must capture her and return her. With the great fighting master cultivation that the little medical fairy showed for the last time, no matter how tyrannical she is, she can't compete with such a powerful lineup. Recalling the news revealed by the demonic poison sect disciple, a cold light flashed deep in Xiao Yan's eyes. Fortunately, he was not late. According to the demonic poison sect disciple, the next time the dark harbor of Black Mist City, the auction will start in 3 days. Luckily I got the news, but I'm afraid she's going to be in danger. Although, without Xiao Yan's blessing, the little medical fairy in her previous life had overcome many difficulties and obstacles on her own, but everything she experienced must have been far heavier and more painful. Now that I'm back, all regrets and tragedies will change. Xiao Yan murmured to himself, and then turned into a stream of light and flew quickly towards the direction of Black Mist City. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye, and during this period, Xiao Yan had already sneaked into the dark harbor. Just like an ordinary passerby who had learned about the auction, he did not show his strength, but quietly waited for things to develop, and also longed for the moment when the two met again 3 days later. Coming. Suddenly, Xiao Yan, who was sitting cross-legged on the bed, suddenly opened his eyes, and a flash of light burst out from his eyes. A touch of joy appeared on his face, and he disappeared. With a slight movement of his body, he disappeared into the room. Appear on the roof, a familiar breath appeared within Xiao Yan's perception. Although it was extremely weak, Xiao Yan was sure that this breath was the breath of the little medical fairy. The 3-color poison ivy plant below has a starting price of 200,000 gold coins. 250,000. I'll pay 300,000. In a busy auction, in a corner, an inconspicuous figure wrapped in a black robe quietly raised the sign in his hand and said in a slightly hoarse voice, 5 million gold coins. Under the black robe, the slightly pale cheeks and rosy lips are clearly the face of the little medical fairy. First time for 500,000 gold coins. 500,000 gold coins for the second time. The third time of 500,000 gold coins. Okay, congratulations to this friend. This 3-color poison ivy fruit is yours. As the auctioneer knocked down the hammer heavily, the buyer of the poison was decided. Upon hearing these words, the little medical fairy under the black robe could not help but relax slightly. She heard that a batch of high-quality poisons would appear in the Dark Harbor auction in Black Mist City. Although she suspected that this was the conspiracy of the demonic poison sect, the 3-color poison ivy fruits had been marked on the colorful ancient book. It was the poison body of disaster that wanted to evolve to the next step, which was a very important poison, so it rashly took the risk to get it. I have to leave later, find a secret place, and devour this fruit. I'm afraid I have some strength to protect myself. The little medical fairy murmured to herself. Most of the gentleness and softness on her face had now disappeared. If a person who had lived in Qingshan town for more than 10 years saw this scene, I am afraid they would be in disbelief. That considerate little medical immortal, how could he become like this? The little medical fairy was silent. The first moment the Dou Wang elder of the demonic poison sect appeared, he completely blocked all her escape routes. Now she was in a desperate situation, and in an instant, the three closest demonic poison sect disciples pounced directly on the little medical fairy. Poison fighting energy of 3 different colors was immediately aroused, and the floor tiles were trampled to pieces in an instant. If there are only these disciples of the Dou Ling demon poison sect, although it is extremely difficult to escape, the little medical fairy will not despair, but now the appearance of an elder Dou Wang has completely shattered her thoughts. After all, it's not long since I set foot in Dou Ling. Bang, bang, bang. However, what the little medical fairy did not notice was that after she left the venue, there were several auction spectators who were also in the dark. After looking at each other for a few times, they quietly got up and followed her out of the auction venue. Come on, there is no need to talk about moral principles for such an insidious woman. Hey, when I catch you, I must let you know what it means to look good. An inexplicable light flashed in the eyes of the little fairy doctor, and he silently lowered his hood a few points. Then, without attracting anyone's attention, he quietly leaned to the side and left the auction hall. It's just that there is a group of people, holding a group, coming menacingly. It seems that they are coming with bad intentions, and at this moment, the little medical fairy just happened to take out the auction items he auctioned from the hall, and after opening the box to confirm, just quietly breathed a sigh of relief. Faced with the solicitation of the elder of the demonic poison sect, the little medical fairy did not agree because she had already figured out the nature of this group of people and he must have evil intentions. As soon as she finished speaking, suddenly, the menacing crowd gathered behind her and blocked the exit, but the little medical fairy's heart couldn't help but jump. Outside the auction venue, there were poison masters in 2s and 3s in the auction house. Most of them had already obtained their favorite auction items, or they were poison masters who came to hang out. Little poisonous girl, I admit that you have excellent talents, but it is too crazy to escape from the dark harbor under my hand. Oops. Facing the 3 people's joint attack under the black robe, a solemn look appeared on the little medical fairy's cheek. Without any hesitation, she quickly took out her seemingly white and slender palms and moved her feet slightly. Arriving last, they arrived in front of the 3 of them at a strange angle. Little poisonous girl, if you are willing to become my teacher, I will ensure that you are fine and will spend a lot of resources to train you. But soon, this look was covered up. After all, this kind of thing was very common in the chaotic Izumo Empire. The Dou Wang elder of the demonic poison sect looked at the little medical fairy, couldn't help but grinned, and said, after the words fell, an old man in white robes stood with his hands behind his back and walked out from behind the disciples of the demonic poison sect. As he walked out step by step, the aura around him continued to surge, making the little medical fairy's face change. The gloom turned, and some of the poison masters watching from a distance couldn't help but exclaimed, "Strong king of fighters." Before the little medical fairy could relax, the next moment, a voice suddenly echoed through the auction house, making her whole body tense up. These words floated out and fell into the ears of the little medical fairy, which made her heart suddenly sink, and a huge feeling of despair suddenly weighed on her heart. The auctioneer on the high platform had a strange look in his eyes, accompanied by the muffled sound of 3 fists clashing. The 3 demonic poison sect disciples who rushed forward immediately spat out a mouthful of blood, flew far away, and then hit the ground heavily. The steps of the remaining people who still wanted to go up suddenly stopped. Dou Ling? She broke through to Dou Ling. Under the black robe, a look of panic appeared on the pretty face of the little medical fairy. Although she was very vigilant, her experience was too immature. The demonic poison sect used a little trick to drag her into a trap. Turning around, he threw out the 2 poison sacks in his hands and then exploded suddenly. For a moment, the light yellow poisonous gas filled the air. If it were to deal with an ordinary great fighting master Dou Ling, This poisonous mist would be enough to kill, they are afraid, but unfortunately, this is the Izumo Empire, and almost everyone who can practice fighting spirit belongs to the empire of Poison Masters. The poison sac of the little medical fairy did not have much effect. Instead, it aroused their ferocity. Someone immediately shouted, "Damn it, come together and catch him. Although the next items are precious, I can't afford them with my current financial resources. Besides, they seem to be a bit high-profile before. In just 1 month, I was promoted from a great fighting master to a fighting spirit. It's just killing people and selling goods. There's nothing to pay attention to, but it's a pity that this man in black robe is probably going to die." After a brief moment of silence for less than a second, the auctioneer raised the hammer again, looked at the items on the maid's tray, and began to make a loud voice, shouting. Then, the next auction item is, at this time, everyone watching the battle, as well as the remaining members of the demonic poison sect, had a look of surprise on their faces. In just 1 month, the little poison girl actually broke through from the great fighting master to the Douling. Such talent is really amazing. Just when everyone thought that the devil poison sect's pursuit this time would be in vain again, an old voice slowly sounded, "Hee, little poisonous girl, you are indeed here. Are you going to use that again?" There was a hint of gloom in the eyes of the little medical fairy, and with trembling hands, he wanted to unseal the evil poisonous body again and release its powerful poison. "I don't think anyone dares to touch her today." Xiao Yan, who was on the side, watched for a while and saw that the little medical fairy was facing this desperate situation. He finally couldn't help but take action. He had already seen what the little medical fairy wanted to do. I end the last life. The little medical fairy should also have experienced this kind of ordeal, but it seems that he tried his best to escape from here after paying a huge price. Thinking of this, Xiao Yan couldn't help but feel a touch of distress. He looked at the little medical fairy and couldn't help but feel a little more pity. After he was reborn, the trajectory of some things had changed. If this continues, maybe something unexpected might happen to the little medical fairy, and it's time for him to take action. Moreover, the current scene has reached the limit of what Xiao Yan can endure. Seeing his close friend in danger in front of him, Xiao Yan will not hesitate to help even if there are no other factors, not for anything else. Just for the sake of my own heart. You're just a fighting king. Who gave you the courage to dare to touch my people? Accompanied by loud shouts, a huge dark object, burning, mixed with the sound of breaking through the air, suddenly flew out from a distance and then hit the little medical fairy and everyone in the demonic poison sect like a 38th line. Separate the two. Boom. The huge and heavy dark object fell on the ground and immediately cracked the ground with huge black cracks. For a moment, the entire auction house seemed to be shaken by the huge force, making the crowd of onlookers, many poison masters staggered and almost fell to the ground. "There are still experts?" For a moment, someone exclaimed, and the Douwang elder also raised his eyes and looked in the direction of the visitor, his eyes slightly lowered. He felt that His Majesty had been severely provoked, but compared to them, the little medical fairy was really staring at the giant black ruler lying in front of her. The lines on it were quite familiar. For a moment, the little medical fairy couldn't help but become a little excited and murmured, "Road. Could it be that he is here?" The next second, a dark figure suddenly emerged from the distance. Between 3 and 2 rises and falls, it passed through the crowd and landed in the auction house. It first looked at the demonic poison sect with a fierce look. Several people then looked at the little medical fairy with gentle eyes. "It's really you, Xiao Yan?" Looking at that face that was a little more determined, but still familiar. The little medical fairy couldn't help but cover her mouth tightly and spoke out with a bit of surprise and emotion. The last time, when he was in a desperate situation, he appeared and saved him. Unexpectedly, now that he is facing a similar situation again, and when he wants to fight for his life, it is still the same young man who comes forward. "It's me. You've worked hard during this period. Fortunately, I didn't come late." Xiao Yan nodded slightly and said gently, ignoring the demonic poison sect disciples and the Dou Wang level elder who were still looking at him as if they didn't exist. Compared with Xiao Yan's relaxation, the Dou Wang elder of the demonic poison sect also had a brief doubt in his heart at this moment. Who is this kid who suddenly appeared and dared to interfere with the demonic poison sect? Matter? For a moment, his mind began to think rapidly, trying to search from his memory to find out who the name Xiao Yan was related to. However, even after thinking for a long time, he still could not figure out Xiao Yan's identity. Who is it? The little medical fairy on the other side, after being extremely moved and surprised, seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly said to Xiao Yan, let's go. It's very dangerous here. Leave me alone."
When Xiao
Yan separated from him, he had just broken through to become a fighting master. Now it's only been more than 2 years. When we meet again, no matter how talented he is, how strong can he be now, I'm afraid it's about the same as myself. It's already the limit. If the two of them join forces, they will definitely not be the opponent of a strong king of fighter under normal circumstances. It's not worth it for Xiao Yan to spend his life in vain for himself. Faced with the caution and worry of the little medical fairy, Xiao Yan did not agree. Instead, he raised the corners of his mouth slightly, showed a bright smile, and immediately said confidently, "Silly girl, since I dare to show up, I have the ability to deal with it. Even if I don't have the strength, I won't see anything happen to you." Faced with Xiao Yan's words, many disciples of the demonic poison sect were not happy. The little poison girl and the others were indeed unable to defeat them in a single fight, but who is this kid who suddenly appeared? "Boy, I advise you not to meddle in other people's business." Someone directly shouted that although Xiao Yan's momentum and his previous hand-to-hand rule seemed amazing, they were disciples of the demonic poison sect. You must know that in the surrounding big cities, the demonic poison sect's power, but it is extremely powerful. Even if this kid who suddenly appeared has some powerful background, how can he compare to the demonic poison sect? What's more, there is a Dou Wang level elder here. Are you afraid that he is a young man? Facing the clamor of the demonic poison sect disciples, Xiao Yan slowly turned around. His face changed from gentle to cold, and a cold light flashed through his eyes. Looking at the demonic poison sect's group, he said calmly, "Humph. Since the demonic poison sect is so arrogant, then I don't mind if I crush this sect to the ground." As soon as the words fell, the originally noisy auction house suddenly became silent. After a long time, there was a burst of laughter, and countless laughter suddenly filled the auction house. "Ha, you're laughing so hard at me, this brat who doesn't know the heights of heaven and earth. Hee. You dare to say that you want to defeat the demonic poison sect. I can't hold it in anymore. Haha, this is probably the funniest joke I've heard this year." For a time, countless ridicules fell on Xiao Yan. A young man who seemed to be less than 20 years old now dared to speak nonsense. What ability did he have to dare to speak such nonsense? Not only the spectators, but also the disciples of the demonic poison sect were holding their stomachs and bursting into laughter. For a moment, the entire auction house turned into a sea of joy. Even the elder of the demonic poison sect gave up. After thinking for a while, he shook his head and determined that Xiao Yan was a fool, but the little medical fairy showed a slightly horrified look. Others didn't understand. Xiao Yan, so didn't she understand? You know, Xiao Yan would never say something he was unsure of. Talk big words from time to time, and you'll see it soon. Xiao Yan shook his head, shouted low, and then took a step forward. His entire figure turned into an afterimage, and in an instant he appeared in front of the elder of the demonic poison sect who was still grinning. He punched out,